South Korea did that in this massive way that everybody should learn from. And
Welcome to Min&JeanTV.
It's great to have you here. How are you doing?
Well, I think this is an unprecedented, really disconcerting time for everyone, with things being shut down, not knowing exactly how long it's going to last, worrying about the health of all the people we care about.
Let's start here, Bill. 5 years ago, you stood on the TED stage and you gave this chilling warning that the world was in danger at some point of a major pandemic. People watching that talk now, the hair stands up in the back of their neck. It is exactly what we're living through. What happened? Did people listen to that warning at all?
Basically, no. I was hopeful that with the Zika and Ebola and SARS and MERS, they all reminded us that particularly in a world where people move around so much, you can get huge devastation. And so the talk was to say, hey, we're not ready for the next pandemic, but in fact, there's advances in science that if we put resources against them, we can be ready. Sadly, very little was done. It's awful to say this, but we could have a respiratory virus whose case fatality rate was even higher. If this was something like smallpox, that kills 30% of people. So this is horrific. But, in fact, most people, even who get the COVID disease, are able to survive. So in that, it's quite infectious, way more infectious than MERS or SARS were. It's not as fatal as they were. And yet the disruption we're seeing in order to knock it down is really completely unprecedented. So this is it's going global. It's respiratory. That was the great fear. How many people end up dying? Hopefully, if we do the right things, it won't be a gigantic number. So it's, we should end up not having a 1918 flu situation. We should be able to do a lot better than that.
And that's because of actions that we would take. I mean, left without the right actions, the prospects are pretty deadly. I mean, if we knew what we knew in 1919, this thing could take out many tens of millions of people around the world. Because, like you said, is the key thing here that it's got this sort of strange combination of being certainly more dangerous than flu, not as dangerous as something like Ebola or SARS, but more dangerous than flu by a factor, but infectious, and also infectious before symptoms have started. Is that part of why it's been really hard to respond to?
Right. So Ebola, you're actually flat on your back before you're very infectious. So you're not at church or in a bus or at a store. With most respiratory viruses like the flu and COVID, at first you only feel a little bit of a fever and a little bit sick. And so there's the possibility you're going about your normal activities and infecting other people.
When was it clear to you that that unless we acted, this could be a really deadly pandemic?
Well, in January, it was discussed that there was human-to-human transmission taking place. And so, the alarm bells were ringing that this fits the very scary pattern, that it will be very difficult to contain. And on January 23rd, China did their equivalent of the shutdown, did it in a fairly extreme form. The very good news is that they were able to reduce the infection rates dramatically because of those actions.
And so what did happen? Because it's such a mystery to me about the sort of the lost month of preparation. Certainly, I mean, in many countries, and certainly in the US, where we are.
I think the most important thing to discuss today is that in the area of testing, we're still not creating that capacity and applying it to the people most in need. So the testing thing, to me, it's got to be organized, it's got to be prioritized. That is super, super urgent. The second thing is the isolation that, various parts, just focusing on the US, some parts are doing that in a fairly strong way and other parts not yet. And, it's very hard to do. It's tough on people. It's disastrous for the economy. But the sooner you do it in a tough way, the sooner you can undo it and go back to normal. And so, testing is the key thing. South Korea did that in this massive way that, everybody should learn from. And so that is paired with the isolation piece. Our goal here is to get to the point where a very small percentage of the population is infected.
If you were president for a month in the US, what would be the top 2 or 3 things you would do?
Well, the clear message that we have no choice to maintain this isolation, and that's going to keep going for a period of time, probably in the Chinese case, it was like 6 weeks. So we have to prepare ourselves for that and do it very well, and then use the testing and every week talk about what's going on with that. If you're doing isolation well, within about 20 days, you'll see those numbers really change. Instead of this, you'll see this. And that is a sign that you're on your way. So this is not going to be easy. We need a clear message about that. It is really tragic that the economic effects of this are very dramatic. I mean, nothing like this has ever happened to the economy in our lifetimes. But money, bringing the economy back and doing money, that's more of a reversible thing than bringing people back to life. And so we're going to take the pain in the economic dimension, huge pain, in order to minimize the pain in the disease and death dimension.
민엔진TV